Hello, everyone, and welcome to Author to Author. I am author Brandy Hunt. Well, most of you know me now as publisher Brandy Hunt, but at the end of the day, I'm just a author who wants to tell stories, write books, and help other authors promote their stories, write books, and change the world one big book at a time. So today we have Keith Kareem Williams with us today. Thank you, Keith, for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell our viewing audience a little bit about yourself.
I am a full-time author. Um, I've written 20 books, 24 if you count the ones that I've co-authored. I write in every genre from erotica to romance, drama, paranormal, science fiction, fantasy. So I'm like a man of many genres. And I wrote my first book in 2004. 2010, I quit my job to become a full-time author, and then I never looked back.
That's amazing. And for you just chiming in, I don't know him personally, so I'm getting to know him just as much as you are. And we did talk a little bit offline, but that's not something that he shared with me. So that's awesome that you were able to walk off your job and become a full-time author. I'm a full-time publisher, but when I've authored my first book in 2014. And even then people are like, you can't be a full-time author, you got to author and do something else. And so I'm glad you're able to give us that insight, and I'm sure he could tell us how he did it. We got a whole hour with him, so we're going to get all the tidbits. And you heard he said he has 20 books and four possibles. And we playing
Yeah,
spade.
like a game of
20,
spades.
24 books,
20
because we said, do we count them? We count them all. Like, we count all the books that your name is on and that your intellectual property is in. So 24 books. He didn't stop at one and go, I'm going to be a billionaire off of the one. Not that it doesn't happen, but he
Right.
kept going. So I'm glad to be able to dig into your life and your livelihood and all of those things today. But before you tell us about the world of being an author, tell us about yourself. What do you do? Do you have children? Not what do you do, because we know what you do, but what else do you do? Do you have children? Where you from? That type of stuff.
Well, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I have two kids, son and a daughter. I've been raising them on my own since they were 5 and 3. And now my son just turned 20 this year, my daughter's 17. So there's that. And it's always tricky juggling the career stuff because to do it full time and it not to be like a hobby, like something you kind of do for fun, when you're doing it full time now, you have to really put even more into it because there's no 9 to 5 that's covering your book sales. Like you don't sell books, you don't pay bills.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? It's a totally different thing. It took a little bit of time when my kids were younger, when after I quit my job, for them to realize that I'm home, but I'm not really home. Like daddy's working. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not playtime.
I'm
I'm actually
here,
working.
but
I'm
I'm
here,
not here. I
but
have to
I'm
tell
not
my
really.
family that same thing. I'm like, they're like, come and do the blah blah with us. I said, I don't clock in, but I clock in.
Yeah.
If I don't clock these hours and write these books and help these people write these books, and I'm gonna be hungry. And so I can imagine having to tell, and that's me telling grown-ups that. I can imagine having to tell your children that. And you don't look old enough to have a 20-year-old.
Thank you. Thank you. You know what it is? I don't stress. I don't let
That is
anything
correct.
bother me.
That, like, I just turned 40, and my daughter will be 20 next month. So people look at me, they're like, where? And I'm like, ting, drink your water, stay out of drama,
Right.
no stress,
That's it.
take as many vitamins as you can. And then I recently, jumped on the working out and losing weight bandwagon, but I didn't have a choice. That's a whole nother video, but I have a choice for that. But for health wise, yeah. So you got a 20-year-old, and did you say 4 or 14?
17. 17.
17. So 20 and 17. That's awesome. And you're a single dad. Tell
Yep.
us about life as a single dad. I know, because we always hear it from single moms. So what is life like as a single dad?
It's pretty much, like I listen to single moms all the time and I could relate because it's pretty much the same thing. Is the thing that kind of got to me early on is like, like you said, when, I say I'm a single dad, I don't think it's as common. So you always get people like, wow, really? How come? And, they ask a lot of questions. But I think it's just a matter of, sometimes, is life just shake out that way, right? I was young, relationship didn't work out. Um, and I was just, to me, I grew up, I knew my father would come around, but I didn't live with my father for a long part of my life. So when I had kids, I said, look, man, whatever my father wasn't to me, I'm gonna be
Mhm.
that to my kids. So I don't know, at first it was tough trying to figuring it out, especially with like my daughter. You know what I mean? We're close and we like a lot of the same things, but it's tricky with certain things with a girl. Certain things that
Yes.
she'll go through. I remember taking her first dance, taking her to go pick out her little junior high school dress, and she's like, "I
Oh,
like you like this," so she's like, "Oh, I don't know," and she, I got to see all of that. You know what I mean? So that was
yeah.
really cool, even though it's a little awkward. But after a while, I just had a conversation with her, like, she started to see her cycle and stuff like that. She wouldn't want to ask me to get past. But I was like, listen,
Right.
I
That's
said
like the
I am
walk
a
of shame. Yeah.
right. I said I am a grown man, right? I've been dealing with women for a long time. I said, it's fine. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there's certain things that I had to like kind of make a little bit of extra effort so that she wouldn't be embarrassed to come and talk to
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hats off to you. Like I tell you, I don't know how we connected on social media. I have connected with so many people during this quarantine slash pandemic than I have in the
me.
last 10 years. Like literally.
Yeah,
So I don't know where I clicked your name or how I got involved with you, but I
I'm glad
love
you
the
did.
way that you, huh?
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I love the way that you connect with your audience and things like that. And one of the things that drew me to ask you if you wanted to interview with me is what you had mentioned. You were writing a new book, or should you write a book about being a single father? And so this show is about complexity. It's not just, oh, let's pitch our books to readers and so we can sell a lot of books to readers.
Right.
But I also try to get aspiring authors to see. He said he has 24 books, and I think he named 8 genres, maybe 10. And he
Mm-hmm.
told you I'm multifaceted, and for this reason, listen to how much stuff he's gone through. So where the erotica might not minister, or it might not reach the person who's looking for paranormal, that's not
Mm-hmm.
going to reach the person who's looking for an answer about being a single father or mother. So as a multifaceted person, and I'm that way, kind of like this shirt has all these different colors, but it goes together. Everybody can't be that way. Everybody cannot. Some people need to do one thing. They
Right.
need to be they a lot of leaders say, find one thing and be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, writing books is the one thing, but inside of
Right.
the one thing, I'm gonna write about multiple things because
Absolutely.
I'm good at multiple things and I'm an expert at multiple things. So if you're watching this and you're an author and you say, you know what, but I want to write about leadership and I want to write a nonfiction, erotica, or whatever your genre is. I don't. I only write nonfiction,
Right.
but that doesn't mean I'm against people who I've never read a paranormal book. That's kind of, is that the scary? That's the scary one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared of scary movies, so you're not going to probably get me to
Right.
read the book about it. But there's a whole. I believe I looked at the list. Do you know what the top three books are? The genres. If you just
Um,
took a guess,
horror,
which is probably same
mystery,
as paranormal.
mystery and romance.
Their number, so paranormal horror was number 5,
Okay.
mystery, romance. And so they have romance and mystery as
Mm-hmm.
like 4 and 3.
Okay.
And then what would you consider Harry Potter and them?
Those are
Sci-
fantasy.
They're number
Fantasy.
1.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me figure out a good storyline for some
Yeah.
sci-fi fantasy. They're number 1. Leadership was number 2.
Mm.
So, I mean, you literally fall in like at least the top 10 of genres. So whatever your first book is, We haven't got into all his books, but I don't know that his first book and his second or third or fourth even match. They might be on totally different spectrums.
Totally different spectrums.
But
Yep.
write what comes out of this pen, is what I always tell people. Put the pen to the paper. Not long though. Let me back up, because I will get people to be like, here's my book. On paper, sugar.
Right, right.
Yeah, I wrote it all on paper. Here it is.
Right.
So jot your notes down, put this pen to work, get your ideas out, and then don't worry about what genre you fit in. Just worry about writing the story, and
That's
then
it.
we'll figure out where you go. So
That's
how did
it.
you decide? Oh, not how did you decide, but where were you when you found out you were going to become an author?
I was actually in college. I didn't finish, but in my second semester, my second year, I can't remember, but it's like I think it was my second year. I had a fiction workshop. So I took this workshop, and the professor, he didn't give us any textbooks, any work like that. He said, what you're gonna do is go home, write, bring it in. We sit in a circle and we critique it in class. So for the first month and a half or so, I hadn't said a word. I wasn't used to, like, I was always a good writer. I used to win poetry contests, essay contests, all of that, easily. So, but I wasn't used to reading my work to anybody. So I'm in this class, I'm working 2 jobs, I'm in college, I'm tired, I didn't write anything. And I said to myself, if you don't bring something to class, you're gonna fail because you're not contributing to the class. You know what I mean? So, and I'm working 2 jobs to pay for school too. I was like, nah, because listen, high school is one thing when it's free. When you're in college and you got to be paying for it, and you know that you just paid for this class and to fail it and have to take it. No, no, no. So I went home one afternoon, and that was one of my days off where I didn't have to go to any of my jobs. So I started writing at 2:30 in the afternoon. Didn't finish writing until 2:30 in the morning when I looked up. That's one of the longest, to this day, that's one of the longest, like, nonstop sessions I ever had. So when I had the class next, I read what I wrote. And it's like it was meant to happen because that day, nobody else brought in anything to read. Nobody. And that never happened in that class. And the professor was like, well, we can't sit here and just stare at each other for 45 minutes. So I'm going to give you guys some writing exercises. So that the whole class groaned about that. So I raised my hand, and he didn't even know my name. So I had to kind of like introduce myself to the professor. And he's like, all right, well, go ahead. And as I started to read what I wrote, I could feel the vibe in the room from the other students and everybody. The parts that were sad, you could feel like the air get heavy. The parts that were funny, people laugh. And then when I closed my notebook, the whole class took a deep breath. And the professor looked at me like, what's your name again? And so from there, he pulled me one side and said, listen, this is what you should be doing. And he said, I don't know, because at that point I was in college undecided, because that's a whole nother show, but I didn't really want to go to college to be a writer. It's just, I couldn't go to do what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So he said to me, this is what you should be doing. He said, I don't know, you undecided. He said, I'm going to decide for you. This is what you should be doing. So after that, he planted that seed. Those first 2 chapters that I read in class became my first novel. I had to drop out of school. Money caught up to me. I moved out of my mother's place when I was 19. So I'm a teenager paying bills, paying for college. You know what I mean? So I dropped out because I wanted a chance to, like, just catch up on the bills and then go back. And then I met my kid's mom because I got free time now. I ain't going to school, right? Next thing, I got a woman living with me. Next thing, like, and when you young and you ain't got parents around, you know what's gonna happen. So next, because it's not like you sneaking around. It's my place.
Right.
Next thing
I pay the bills here. You told me to
right?
move
I'll
out
pay
and
the
pay
bills
my own
there,
bills.
right?
So I'm paying my own bills and digging myself in a hole.
Right. So now, I have a son. So I was like, well, all right, well, I gotta chill out on school now. Let me take care of my family. That's more important. And then kind of like when I got to a point where I was like, okay, you figure out how to be a dad. You figure out how to balance the bills. You figure out how to save a little bit. Now it's like, all right, I'm gonna go back to school, and then it's like, aren't you late? Because when you live with somebody, you start to know their cycle, like they know their cycle. And you
Right.
start saying to yourself, ain't you like overdue for this?
Right. Right. Come on,
And so
sis.
right. And then here comes my daughter. So, but what I didn't want to happen is I said, all right, can't go back to school. Fine. But what I was going to go back to school for is something that technically I can do on my own, right? I don't
Right.
need a degree to be a writer,
Right.
right? So I just started researching self-publishing, and I actually started off with a company called Book Search. I wish they were still around. They had the best prices and the packages and everything. So I went with them. Print on demand company. Put out my first book, took my tax return, bought 500 copies, and looked at the box. Because a lot of people think that you're just gonna write a book and sit back and here comes the money, right? I put it on Kindle, I put it on Amazon, and I'm sitting there. Was Kindle around then? I think. Well, if it wasn't Kindle, I
It was some kind
definitely
of
could have.
e-reader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I put it on, and now I'm looking at Amazon, the place that sell books, and I'm sitting back like, all right, here we go.
Right.
It's
Time to
crickets.
go up.
Yeah, now it's crickets. So now I got this box of books that I'm looking at, and my brother, my younger brother, my best friend, he came and he said, "Oh, you got the books?" I said, "Yeah." So I seen him just open the box, take the stack, and leave. I said, "Hey, I paid for those." He said, "I got you." Whatever he left the house with that day, he sold. He came back, put the money down, took the rest of the box. Within a week, all those books were gone.
Wow.
He went to every person that we knew, people we ain't know. He ain't give him no choice. He said, "Listen, this is Reem's book. I need $20 from you." It was almost like, and he just gave it up. So life kind of got in the way, which is a whole nother show. But that's why my first book, there's a gap. 2004 is when I put out the first book after my daughter was born, and then I didn't put out my second book until 2010.
Okay.
2010, when I put out the second book, I I was working for a vending company. I was a manager. I was working in Times Square. I got out in Times Square to go meet with a client of theirs, and I saw everybody else just happy. Going into the MTV building happy. They got the Starbucks. Hey, Greg. Hey, Bob. Hey, Marsha. Everybody's all excited to go
Right.
to work. And I'm like, yo, I hate what I do for a living, right? I just hate it. And it's not that it was a bad job. It's just boring.
Right.
You on a hamster wheel. You know what I mean? And I had felt as if I peaked in the company. This is as far as they are going to allow me to go, right? Hey, there's no upward movement for me from here, right?
Right.
So I got out. I was walking to the meeting on the company BlackBerry. I took it out. I typed my 2 weeks resignation because I had gotten the proof copies of my second book. So I was like, all right, this is what I want it to be. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a chance because it's either I do it now, but I fear that if I waited too long, that I would lose the courage to do it.
Right.
Like, I would just get too comfortable and not be willing to take the risk. And back then, I felt as if I was young enough that if I failed, all right, I go back and go get a regular job. It's not like I was a top CEO in a Fortune 500 company. I was gainfully employed, yes, but it's not like I can't get another one of these jobs,
Right.
right? And work my way back up within a year or two to this salary, right? So I'm like, what I got to lose? It was scary because, I got to take care of my kids. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have any help doing that. But I knew that sometimes to force an evolution or to force yourself to go to a different level than where you've been stuck, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to be scared. You have to be nervous. You know what I mean? So I quit, and then now it's really on because I have to sell books. It's not like before where, all right, I sold 20 books this weekend or I sold 5 books this week. I'm cool. Nah, I
Right.
have to sell books. So that's just how that went down. So that's my superhero origin story.
That's awesome. You dropped so many good nuggets. So let me go back to So if y'all see me looking down, it's because it's not because I'm bored, it's because I'm taking notes.
Okay.
So when you originally say you bought 500 copies,
Yeah.
what what changed between buying the copies and selling the copies?
Well, buying the copies. Okay, let me see. Well, buying the copies is there's this excitement and it's cool and everything else, and it's nice when you get the box and there's feeling of joy and it's feeling of pride. And you're
Right,
excited and you're happy. But then this is when the work starts,
right,
right? The work starts when you actually have to go out and convince people to buy your work. That's the tough part. This is when it gets tough, and a lot of people don't realize
exactly.
that. They think they think that the books are just gonna sell, and that's not how it works. 1 second, because it just got dark in my room because I got like sunset
I
over
thought,
here.
I was like, he
Nah,
he went from light to dark.
nah,
I
it's
said, is
the
it me?
it's the
It's
nah.
okay. Take your
I'm a
time.
trip.
Look, what a, people probably so used to chaos during Zoom meetings now. It just it's a
Right.
thing.
I'm like,
Yep,
what
there
is
you
happening? All
go.
right, that light is
Good.
better, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
So they believe that the books are just gonna sell, and that's not the case. So what I started doing was, I would take a table, go outside, and sell my books. Now, at first, when I used to do this, it's like I used to stand by my table and just wait for people to come and be like, "Oh, nah, that's
Right.
not gonna work at all, right?" Don't get me wrong, I would get sales, but those are like die-hard readers who will just walk up to you and just, "Oh, these are books," that's not gonna work. So the same way, like you see how we're having this conversation, I stopped trying to sell books
Right.
and I just started talking to people,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same way I kind of operate on social media. Don't get me wrong, I put up my posts because I need you to know that I have new material out and so on and so forth. But by the same token, I don't want to constantly be on it where it's like I'm a constant commercial.
Right.
Because I think that when you become like that, people start to tune you out,
They do. They do.
right? They do. So there are little things that I do where even when I'm out selling books, like I said, I just have conversations. I used to, try to stop people, and now I just when they pass by, I say, "How you doing? I'm an author. I'm out here promoting my books. If you got a minute, come talk to me. I'll tell you about what I write, so on and so forth." That usually works. It's as simple as that. But I also tell every author that what works for one person may not work for you. But
Right.
don't make that have you feeling as if you're not, up to par or there's something wrong with you. The key to me to marketing your work is to actually taking the best parts of your personality and using that. The
Yeah.
same way you make friends, the same way you laugh and joke with family members, is the same way that readers are going to connect with you. So if you're funny, tell jokes. If you're sexy, be sexy. You
Right.
know what I mean? If you're quiet and mysterious, be that. If you're strange and quirky and you're introverted, you don't like being, be that.
Right.
But whatever it is, be true to who you are, because then when it comes to marketing your work, it's natural. You're not forcing yourself to do anything you don't want to do. And because people could pick up on that.
Yeah.
And it sometimes I feel that it translates into lack of confidence. And the worst thing could happen when you're trying to market and promote your work is you not being confident. Because if you don't believe in it, they won't believe in it.
Or
Right?
inauthenticity.
Absolutely.
They deem you to be unauthentic. So it's like you got this, like I can't be it it, I can't be this super professional all the time. I do workshops, and I think when people hear trainer workshop, they hear white man,
Right.
older white men. And
Right.
so
Right.
when I walk
They
in the
expect
room,
to
they're
see
like,
Jim Rohn. Right, right, right,
yeah,
right.
they're like, I'll be like, surprise. you know, and
Right.
I'm all bubbly and, you know, Brandy with the big hair. And so I totally eliminate all expectations of the typical trainer. But when I first started, I did try to be super dressed up and upright. I'm only 5 foot, so it's only so much upright I'm gonna be. But you know, I tried to put myself in a box that I thought people wanted me in. And one day I was like, you know, this is too much work. And I like being funny and I like being corny. And most of the time I'm more corny than funny, but it's funny to me and it helps me to deliver my message the best way that I can. And people would come to me and be like, this class was so fun. It was, you know, you weren't standoffish, and so you have to be you because that's the only way you can sell what it is that you're selling. I'm
Only
always tell
people.
people the Chinese people, and you're in New York, so I'm pretty sure y'all have them on all corners in little Chinatown. Sample, sample. You
That's
just got a
it.
sample. Yes, you just got that same sample yesterday. They say they know it's you, but that is their art of selling, is to give you something with no. They ain't trying to sell you nothing. They just trying to let you taste it. Because if you
That's it.
taste it, you're coming back anyway. Or you might have had, he talked about the customer that is the automatically coming. It's some people that's diehard Chinese food and they come in whether you give them, they're going to take the sample and they're going to buy the food. But so you have some people that'll come directly to your table like, yes, Kareem, I want to support you. What did you buy? What did you write? Because I'm here for it. And then there's some
Right.
people that's like, I don't read that. I
Yep.
don't read it all. I don't read it all.
Yep.
And then you're like,
Yep.
do I stand here and convince them to buy my book? Or do I stand here and share with them and experiences enough to gravitate their own spirit to, oh, you know what? I have somebody. Because even if it's not them, my daughter loved paranormal. I don't know what your
Right.
book's about, but she loved it. And so I would
Right.
probably be the one to be like, I ain't reading it because I'm scary. But I'll buy it for my daughter and I'll tell her
Right.
what it's about. And so here we are, social media. People kill me with this, not kill me because that sounds horrible, but people irritate my soul with this. Hey y'all, I wrote a book, go buy it.
Right.
That's it. That's all we
That's it.
get. Like that. I mean, I granted I understand Mercedes ain't out, you know, giving out free cars and free test drives all
Right.
day. I get because people are like, well, Mercedes don't. Not what you not you. We're not Mercedes yet, okay? If you was on
Now,
the Mercedes level, we might not be having this conversation. But they do
ex-
let you test drive the car. They do allow you to take part in some kind of experience so that you can become one with it. Well, how are you on social media being antisocial? How are you being a
it
bully?
makes no sense.
Go buy
I
my
tell
book. Go buy
I
my book.
tell
That's bullying.
I tell people all the time, right? Marketing and promoting your book is like marketing and promoting music, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times you look at an album cover. If you go to Spotify or Pandora or whatever you use to listen to your music, go through the album covers, right? Let's say they don't have the artist name on the cover. All you're looking at is the cover. You have no idea what's on that album.
Right.
You have no idea what's on that CD, right? A lot of times what works for me in promoting, and let's say just this is mostly for like online, right?
Hmm.
Online, you know what I do? I drop samples.
Right.
I cut, and it's simple. I cut and paste parts from the book that I know, wow, this is an attention grabber, this is a nice scene, boom, and I post it,
And that's
and
it.
I get people to say, oh, I want to read more. You have to let them know what you're doing, right? You don't have brand recognition. Now, when people like, I've heard authors with that same mentality, like what you just described, where, well, Mercedes don't. But guess what? Mercedes, BMW, Bentley, they have brand recognition,
That is
right?
correct.
So the Mercedes of literature is a Stephen King, a J.K. Rowling. These are the Mercedes and the Benzes and the brand name, the Balenciagas, because they have brand recognition. They've
Right.
been doing it for a while. People know that every time I pick up one of their books, it's good. I at least like it. If I don't love it, at least it's readable, right? You have to build yourself to that level. I don't care how sexy or how nice your cover is.
Right.
Until
Right.
until Because listen, and let's keep it 100. I've looked at a lot of covers on Amazon. Click to read this sample. Like, oh, nah, I ain't reading this. You know what I mean? You can't get past page one. So
Right.
that's not enough. And I keep trying to tell people, like, look, you have to put the work in. There's no way around it. There is no way around it. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle where it's the perfect storm, right
Right.
place, right time, right climate, and even the right word spreading, the right mouths spreading the word, and a book could just take off. But that is not the case for 99.9% of people.
Right.
You're going to have to put some work.
You have
And
to, and just imagine. And I tell my authors, and I don't know if you did the basically what you just said. Do samples along the way. So while you're even writing your book, up until we're not Beyonce. As much as I work out,
right,
as big as my hair is, I am
right,
not. I cannot drop a mixtape in the middle of the night. I cannot
right,
drop my
right.
book
I can't do it.
overnight. I gotta build my audience up to the release so that when it does come out, they've been getting these tidbits for 3, 4, 5 months. I've been telling them a little bit of a story. I got a hot story about to come out. I'm gonna tell you it when we offline. It's a true story, and I've been giving like little tidbits, and they're like, "Oh, what happened next? This is a true story." So when it actually drops, sold.
Get
Maybe
excited. There's a
hopefully I sell 1,000, but if I don't, I at least know I've been trickling down a little bit at a time.
right. It's important to do that. You have to do that. And the thing about it is, right, in the era that we live in, the time that we live in, there's really no excuse not to do that, because you have so many free platforms and places you could do that. I had an author friend, and she would always complain like, "Oh, I don't get any support." And what I said to her is, I said, "Well, how many people on your page know you're an author?
Right.
You post more celebrity gossip than you do about your books,
Ding, ding,
right?
ding.
Your social media, if I analyze your social media is not designed for you to sell books or get any type of attention. What you're doing, you are not. I said, sis, you ain't gonna sell books this way. I told her straight. I said, sis, you're not gonna sell books this way. And my
Right.
thing is, what I was trying to explain to her is, it doesn't have to be like we said, a concept. Buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. But you have to have balance.
Right.
You have to have almost like bait, where things that you put out to draw readers in, that's not really like sales pitches.
Right.
But you cannot, a day should not go by where at least twice a day you don't let people know that you're writing a book. You don't have to necessarily try to sell them a book, but that's the thing I wondered about when I first started. Like when I started a blog, right? I said to myself, all right, I'm gonna start this blog, but what who wants to read about? I'm not a musician, I'm not a rock star. Who wants to read about what a writer's day-to-day life is?
Right.
But you know what? Readers do.
Mm-hmm.
Readers do. Just like you have fans of films, you have athletes. Because it's just like I could never understand, like, man, I don't care what LeBron James is doing this weekend. I don't care where he went on vacation.
Right.
Right? But you have fans of him who are into sports, that they want to know what these guys eat, where they live, where they vacation, what team they might sign to. All of these things. I might not be into it at that level, but they have people that are. So it's also recognize your audience. Yes, readers want to know these things. They want to follow along with you. They want to connect with you. You are a person just like them. They want to know things about you outside of what you write. But you can't get swept up in kind of like the social media thing, where you're doing what like you're behaving as if you're just a person that's just working a job and you don't have a product to sell. You can't do
Right.
that. You know what I mean? It's no use if nobody knows that you have it, right? So that's the thing too. So I try to tell my author friends, listen, you got to find a healthy balance
Right.
between being social and also letting people know that, about what you support.
Well, and that's a good point. Not making it always about the sale, telling, putting the sample and book coming soon, or, always, but how about sharing something about like a quote that might be in the book, or
Right,
a like if it was about single dads, a picture of a man and his son. You know,
right.
it doesn't always have to be salesy to be impactful, because what my boyfriend always says, he said, we have 1 second to change a life on Instagram. One, because we scroll fast.
Scroll
And
right there.
so he
They will
said,
scroll right through.
yeah, you have 1 second to decide, up, I don't want to see that today. And so you can't be real, you can be real deep, but your target audience, I think, will stop and read those long posts, especially on Facebook. If I had to determine who was where, I would say, and this is according to Google also, over 30 is on Facebook, under
Yeah.
30 is on Instagram. Now, on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter and all of that, I don't really follow all of them, but Facebook users are over the age of, I think it's actually said 32. Under
Mm-hmm.
32 is Instagram. And so if you have a long post that you want to share a story, share that over on Facebook. They like to read and
Yes.
interact over there.
Yes.
Instagram, you're gonna have to have a really hot, cool, saucy picture of something, because that's all they're looking for. And you can put a link in the comments if a link is necessary, but to connect with people. So for me, like, I I don't sell publishing on my page, and people think that's a, I rarely put looking for new clients. What
Mm-hmm.
do? I just show my clients. So I show, congratulations to Kareem. He just launched his book. And they go, oh, my own brother didn't even know I was a publisher. He was like,
Wow.
oh, you publish books? I was like, really? But that's, he's like, you be busy. You do a lot. And I do a lot of stuff. But until this year, I was kind of under the radar. People
Okay.
knew, but I did not broadcast it. So even though now I'm fully publishing full time, since I got sent home. I was doing corporate training throughout the United States, so I was flying all over the world. And so when quarantine came, I had to come home, and I was like, well, what am I do? And someone was like, duh, publish books. And I'm
Right.
like on a regular, because I was just doing, like I told you offline, like one or two every couple of months. I was working on I was working in a call center, and then I left the call center to go live my dream job, which is traveling and motivational speaking. And then we got sent
That's
home.
awesome.
And so, but even on my page, I don't just say, hey, y'all, I'm a publisher. I had to formulate it. I'm a why person. When 2 and 3 year olds used to say, well, why? I'm that person. I need to tell you why you need my book, why you
Right.
need my service. I put stuff like, um, I know that people, you know, I know that people say, I want to write a book every day. Are you that person who keeps saying it but not implementing it? Let's talk.
Right.
Something like that. Because I
Mhm.
can't just lead in with a flat statement, hey, come publish with me. Because
Right.
why do I need to publish with you? Because there's thousands of publishers out there.
Right.
So just like books, why should someone read your book? Why should I take time to read your 200 or 300 page novel versus
Right.
someone else's? So if I can tell you anything else, learn the why that's wrapped up in your story, and you'll always sell books. Because if you can tell someone what life change they're going to get from reading your book, whether it's entertainment or life changing, if I can tell you what kind of entertainment you're going to get, this new book he's got coming out sounds like it has lots of entertainment. We're going to talk about it in a minute. So if I can tell you how you're going to be entertained with this book, whatever it is, if you could tell someone the change that they're going to get or the reason why they're going to read it, they'll be more they'll be more apt to buy the book than you to just be like, hey, here, I'm great, I'm a
Right.
great person, and I'm a great
Right.
writer, and here's my
Right.
book.
Right. That's a really good point. And another thing that you said earlier is when you describe the difference between different demographics between Instagram and Facebook. Because I I had debates with author friends, right? Where I was on Google Plus, I'm on Goodreads, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Snapchat. The only one I ain't jump on yet is TikTok because I ain't got the energy to make them videos, right? But
Right.
I'm telling people, like, I don't care where it is. If it's a social media platform, I'm on it because I don't care if I get one reader from there. Because like Google Plus when it was around, because they don't, they don't have it around anymore. But when Google Plus was around, I got diehard loyal readers on there,
Mm.
right? Might not be as much as Facebook, but I got readers from there. And guess what? When Google Plus went away, or even when it was there, you end up seeing that you know each other, you see each other on Facebook. So
Yeah.
now you follow each other on Facebook too. So I will go into the most discreet, obscure, hardly used platform and mine readers from there, find readers, right? Because one of the things I always tell people is everybody's a reader to me. If you can read and write, you're a reader. Because
Right.
I've had authors tell me, oh, well, I only want to go to book events. And I'm like, you're limiting yourself. Everybody who can read and write is a reader. It's just a
So
matter of if you have something that would interest them for them to.
so they would tell you they don't want to go to like conferences and stuff like that. They only want to go to events
But
where other authors
yeah,
are.
right. They only want to go to book events, or
Lord.
they wouldn't do like what I do. Like I'll go out in any neighborhood, in any city, just because I feel like it, and just go sell books, just because I feel like doing it.
Right.
I've gone to book events. Like I was in a book event in Silver Springs, Maryland, a few years back, and the book event was over. I could have called a hotel because they had, like they would have sent the car to come pick me up. And I was like, it's not that far because I saw how far the driver drove me from the hotel to the event because I usually try to stay in the area. And I was like, it's probably like a 6, 7 minute walk. You know what? After everybody packed up from the event, I took my rolling bag of books, and it's like a busy kind of like downtownish area, and I was selling books on my way back to my hotel. So one of the authors, she posted on Facebook like, when Keith talk about that, he is really on it like that. And I was like, yes. I said, why not? That's what I'm here for, right? And it's not a thing where I'm in people's faces and I'm harassing them and basically, no, I'm just introducing myself. The average person, well, I want authors to also understand is take pride in what you do,
Right.
right? What you do is not a common thing. Even though there are a lot of books and a lot of authors, it's still not that common of a profession, right? So when you walk up to a person and they ask you what you do and you say, "Oh, I'm an author." Even when I had my job, I wasn't telling people, "Oh, I work so and so." What do you do? I'm an author. And then the next question is, "Wow, what kind of books do you write?" And then now we're having a conversation, right? I've sold books to people, to dudes who haven't read a book since they was in high school.
Wow.
They'll say, "Yo, bro, I don't really read like that." But after we talk, they'll say, "You know what, though? I respect what you do. Hold on, let me go to the ATM. I'll be right back."
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was when I was taking cash. Now, or well, before all of this,
Right.
a lot of people used to try to get away like, "Oh man, if I had the cash," I'm like, "It's all right, I got cash out.
Listen,
I
PayPal,
got
Cash App,
I
that
got
has
Zelle,
saved so many
Cash
lives.
App. You ain't listen. Once we have a conversation, you ain't getting away without. You know what I mean? I got everything. So, and what you said again, I want to go back to that real quick. That's really important when you describe the differences between the different platforms. You have to also pay attention to the platform and kind of study it a little bit, and I guess get the temperature of what goes on there. Because,
Yeah,
like you said, you could put a long post on Facebook and people they want that over there. It's a different demographic. Instagram is pictures, so you need interest in visuals and interest in short video clips for that.
that's it.
Snapchat is even a younger demographic than Instagram. You know what I mean? So and then Twitter is Twitter is its own entity because it was around probably just about around the same time with Facebook, and Facebook
Mm-hmm.
didn't crush it because Twitter also has its own vibe. It's very tribal. There's a lot of tribalism. Like, people click up and you know what I mean? You have different factions on Twitter. So Twitter is a whole different beast. But once you understand how each one of them works, then you can optimize what you post there. Because there's things that I'll post on Twitter that I absolutely will not post on Facebook. I just won't.
Right.
There's things that I'll do on Instagram or Snapchat that I will not do on Facebook. You know what I mean? So it depends. That's a real good point.
So, well, thank you. So that was it was major to me once I got out of the. Okay, so I know how to publish. I can publish with my eyes closed. It's really not that hard. It's more tedious than anything. Silent plug. I'll tell you at the end of the show. I have a workshop coming up, and I'll tell you. In the workshop, I'm gonna give out all the secrets, because I want people to I want you to write your book and I want you to be confident, but I want you to sell your book. I don't want you to just write a book and then you're like, nobody will buy it. And so I really dug deep into marketing book style. So, because I took a lot of classes for products and services, and they really don't talk about books. They talk
Right.
about everything else. Now, I do have a service, so it really worked good for my service. But then I kept thinking, nobody really targets authors. So what I did was I started just paying attention to how readers buy books, like when do people buy in, getting people to buy in bulk and book clubs and stuff like that. So that's when I decided to go find out who's where, who's, because my daughter, she was like, Ma, you post stuff on Instagram and I don't see it. Oh, I don't know. She said, we're not reading all of that. That's what she told me. She was like, we're not reading all of that. And I was like, what you mean? She was like, you put a whole paragraph. She was like, we're not reading all of that. And I was like, oh. So I went to Google, and that's how I found out that more wordsy stuff goes on Facebook, and then Instagram is. And then when my boyfriend said, you got 1 second and that's it. And I was like, all right. So just really digging in, and I might add branding and marketing to my services next year. Right now I'm consulting, so I do consult and give you the answers. I don't do the done for you service yet, because that's a whole different beast. And I don't think people understand done for you service means I have to have a headache right along with you. And so, but I do consult about it, because I really do have a heart for people to be able to tell their story. And then when I hear people say, I want to write a book and I want to become a motivational speaker, and then they won't do a Facebook Live, that concerns me. How
How?
how do
How?
you want to be a motivational speaker, but when I come to your page, what you say, you promoting all the celebrities, but you have not once popped in and said hey to your audience. Hey, look, I'm country, so hey y'all. Hello
Right.
guys, hey you guys, just want to pop
Right.
in, thank you for buying my book, whatever, say something. But don't tell me you want to be a motivational speaker and you can't pick up your motivational book that you wrote and motivate somebody. Does that make sense to you? Do you get that?
Right. Right. That's that. Look, that reminds me of a time I was selling books, right? So I got my table out there. So this lady walked up to me and she started telling me about her job, right? She started bragging about her job and her 401k plan and how much money she got stashed. And she gave me ran the whole gamut of everything that's awesome about her job. And her tone was, you need to sign up for what I'm doing, right? So when she finished talking, because I let her talk, and no disrespect to her, like that's the path for her. That's not the path for me. But I
Right,
let her. So when she finished, I said, you know what, sis? I hear you, and I hear about your properties, and you're about to get another home. But sis, my book is $20, and you still haven't bought a book, and you've been here for
right,
15 minutes talking to me. So then she paused, she thought about it, then she said, I ain't mean to. And she was basically, then she went further back and told me why she chose that career. And the thing is, I get it. Everybody's not going to be a fighter pilot.
right,
Everybody's not going to be an engineer. Everybody's not going to be an author. Everybody's not going to be a musician. We all have our places where we fit in, right? So my thing to her was, um, I'm doing what I was meant to be doing. And if you give up that $20 out your 401k plan, you'll find out that I'm great at it too, right?
Right.
Just let me live. So it's one of those things where sometimes, that's the hardest part about like me when I go out and I set up my table and I sell my books. Sometimes there are people that will treat you like panhandler. Like, hey, listen, I've gotten into it with people too. Like, hey, listen, bro, I'm not out here shaking a cup, right? These are my
Right.
books that I published, that I invested my money in, and this is a real business. Like, if you don't, it's just that I choose to promote it this way. Another big question that people hit me with is, oh, how come you're not in Barnes and Nobles? You know what I mean? Things like that. And I'm like, well, and then sometimes just, I take them through the whole business aspect of it. I say, well, let me break it down to you.
Thank
Let me
you.
show you why. Let me show
Thank
you
you.
how this works, right? And this is why I'm not. And then I said to one lady, I said, you ask me about Barnes and Nobles. You don't see brick and mortar stores is closing. When was the last time you even saw Barnes and Nobles? So I say all that to say that also we have to, whether we like it or not, and as I say we, I mean, there's authors listening, we have to recognize that we have to be aware of what's going on
Right.
in terms of we can't always just do things the old school way. It won't work. Times change. You have to keep up with the times. You know
Right.
what I mean?
We have
You
to be
can't
innovative just like everybody else. We
like
have
everybody
products
else.
just like everybody else. A book is a product just like everybody else's. So you can't assume that there's no elevation or evolution, rather,
Right?
in book writing when they used to write in chalk and stuff like that. Then we went to the pen. Now we're in the
Right.
computer, so we
Right.
have to be revolutionary also with the way we sell it, the way we pitch it. We can't do book signings anymore. I mean, we could, but we ain't. I ain't. I know that.
I
And
ain't doing
so you
right.
we we you can push against the brick all you want to, as far as, well, I'll just wait until this is over. Well, who knows when this is going to be over? And are you going to stifle yourself to the point where you're not going to sell any books and you're just going to throw your destiny out the window till quarantine and coronavirus just obliviate into thin air when you could have just embraced technology and did your book signing online and actually reached more people than you would have in your normal city? I did a workshop from somewhere overseas. I think it was Dubai or something like that. They had a workshop and they needed somebody to come and talk about publishing. They probably wouldn't have flew me over there. I'm almost certain of it. But they could bring me in the room by via this computer. And so we have to embrace what's happening and become part of it and stop shunning because yes, as an author, we used to coming into the room together, singing Kumbaya, reading
Mhm.
each other's books, book signings, but some, the people that say they only want to go to book events, you can't do that anymore. So you either embrace the change, and this is whether you're an author or whatever your profession is,
Whatever.
you either embrace the change or you get left behind. I heard this lady ask earlier, or I saw a post on Facebook, and she said a parishioner is what I'll call them. I don't know if it was the pastor or someone in their church, but someone shunned people in church that don't bring their Bible and bring their Bible on their phone. And she
Mhm.
said, how would you respond to this? I said, well, first, I would have never said that to anyone.
Right.
But if that was in my church, I'd have left the church. Secondly, but thirdly, third,
Mhm.
um, no one except my Amish friends are still riding on a horse. We've
Right.
all crossed over to drive a car, and some of us are in planes, and some of us are trying to drive a car in the sky. And then the little Tesla I'm trying to get one day is driving for me. We
Right.
are we evolve everywhere we want to. So if a pastor was to tell somebody sitting beside me, they called him lazy, that he was lazy because he didn't read an actual Bible and he read a Bible on an app. Shouldn't we be happy that he reading a Bible?
Right.
I mean,
Look,
ain't that the goal? So
when I
whether we
first
reading it on the paper or the computerized paper, life is evolving, and if we don't evolve with it, we're going to be left behind.
I'm gonna give you another example of that. I perfect another example. When I first started and I got in the game, you had a lot of authors that were already established and they were around for a little while, and they were doing things like going to traditional printers and doing print runs of 10,000 copies at a time, right? And they were saying that's what makes you a publisher, right?
Oh,
Or you're not real if you're not doing this. Oh, print on demanding. Okay, the same authors that told me that are using print on demand now.
of
I got
course.
I got 24 books. You think I'm gonna sit in my house with 240,000 books in my crib?
Right.
Not crazy.
No.
And my thing is, I always knew that. Look, not now. Don't get me wrong. Not all print on demand companies from a dollars and cents perspective make sense because
Right.
I've done extensive research to see who's the most cost effective, right?
Yeah.
But if I could print off 100 copies at a time, why not? If you know how many times I publish a book and then one of my readers will say, "Oh, Keith, I caught a typo on page 25." Imagine me sitting out with 10,000 copies with that same mistake, right? In a bunch of copies. If I don't like the cover, if I feel like, you know what, this cover is not doing what I needed to do, I could just change the cover in the next batch. Let's try it with
Right.
this one. You know what I mean? So I like the flexibility of it. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you could live with the price point and you did your research
Right.
and you know that, all right, you still turning the profit you need to turn, then who's to tell you how to do what you're doing? You know what I'm saying? It works for you. And you have to change with the times. There's no way around it. Like, all right, I give you a perfect example with my books. You see how I write in different genres? That's so that I can appeal to different audiences. Right?
Absolutely.
Not only do I do that, in each genre, I also this is just trial and error, but I also realized that book length, depending on who you're marketing to, it matters too. Because what I started realizing is when it comes to diehard readers, they like meatier, longer books for the most part, right? But when I was out promoting books in the street to just anybody, random strangers that aren't readers, that they didn't come outside to get a book. You see my novellas, the books that are like 100 pages, 120 pages. I started selling those faster than I was selling my book, and I couldn't understand it. And then I gave it some thought, and I said, you know what it is? These people aren't heavy readers, right?
Mm.
They just want something casual, something
Yeah.
that they could pick up, ride on it, read on their way to work, and put it down. It's not intimidating to them. A big 350-page book to somebody who doesn't like to read, they like, nah,
Yeah.
right? But something that's thin and small and, you already had a good conversation, it's not too expensive. All right, let me get a copy of that. And if all goes well, that person will come back and buy maybe your more expensive books or your bigger books because now they realize, no, I really like this. I want more. So you
What's your
have to, yeah.
I'm not asking, what's your favorite genre?
My favorite is actually, that's tough. I like, okay, because for me, a lot of my books aren't one thing. Like I'll have a gritty urban fiction novel, but it could read like contemporary lit, or it could read there's romance of it. But all right, I'm gonna give you three. I really like writing fantasy, science fiction type stuff because that's
Okay.
what I grew up reading. I love comic books and the Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. I was that kid in the hood that I be in the trap and I'm reading comic books. I'm reading X-Men. You know what I mean? That's how I was. I'll be on the stoop with the goons reading comic books, and they wouldn't bother me because they know that that's just Rick. That's how he is, right? So I really like to write stories like that because I think I get a chance to really stretch my imagination more than because there are no rules with it.
Right.
You know, then I actually like to write the real grittiest type of urban life type stories. I wouldn't necessarily call them street lit, but more, it's a lot more grit. It's a little bit more violent. I like to put violent and sexy side by side, but it not be disturbing to read.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And then lately, I actually enjoy the erotica, but it's harder. Romance and erotica is harder to write than people think, right? I think that those two are genres that people just assume is just they just no, it's not. Because when you're writing about love, to make it believable, the story has to be really complex
Right.
for people to really feel it. Because it's just like real life. There are reasons. Like you see people in relationships all the time. You're like, why are you in that relationship? That's from the outside, you looking in, it doesn't make sense. But if you were to get into the meat and bones and everything else that's going on behind the scenes between these two people, if you knew more about them, then it would make sense to you, right? So romance is really hard. Erotica is really, really hard because how many ways you can describe it and not
Right.
make
And it
it
has to
seem
be really
ridiculous?
it has to be really descriptive, and it can't sound
Right,
like the last scene because you already,
right,
that scene is already orgasmic. You can't redo that one. So
right.
yeah, I don't do it for that for multiple
Yeah,
reasons, but that's one of them.
because the problem with that genre is you get caught between not making it be pornography,
Right.
right? You don't want it to cross over into that where it's just lowbrow, just you know what I mean. You don't want to do the low hanging fruit thing,
Right.
but also I've read it where it's on the opposite side where I'm like, that's just ridiculous. Like now you just, you know what I mean? Come on,
Right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? Like you're exaggerating. Like that's just ridiculous. So
That's just a stretch.
yeah, you come on. You know what I mean? Like so it's a really difficult genre. That's why I don't write it that often because it's really really hard. That's the hardest genre to write. Believe it or not, the fantasy is easier for me. That genre is really hard. So, but I would say the fantasy is my favorite, and then the gritty stuff, and then like drama. You know,
Okay. And out of all 24 of your books, which one is your favorite? If you had to
if I had to
pick
choose,
one.
all
It's probably
right,
like a parent having to pick their favorite child.
yeah,
My mother
it is,
knows
it
that
is,
I'm her
it is.
favorite, but she has to say that, all of us are her favorite.
Oh,
So, um, if you had to pick, which one would be your favorite?
my favorite would I believe would always be my first.
Yeah.
Just because that was the one that I put out there and I wanted to see if I had it. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
needed to see if I had it. And the feedback that I got when I moved those books let me know that I had it. And it planted the seed that let me know that eventually this is what I'm going to do because I'm good at it, right? The
Yeah.
second book is a close second, but for a different reason. Because that's the one that just let me say, you know what? I ain't working for nobody ever again. I'm out.
Right. What's the first title of the first book?
The first book's title is Water Flows Under Doors.
Water Flows.
Under Doors.
And what's it about?
That one is urban fiction, but it's about a young man going through he recently just went through a breakup, and it's an unlikely romance where there's a girl in his building who he gets involved with, but her situation makes it complicated and dangerous for them to be involved.
Oh,
But what I use that book to do is I think that book is the soul of any hood. You know, because I'm from New York, people always assume, oh, this is New York. Yeah, it could be Chicago, it could be Detroit, it could be down south. It don't matter. It's just I really wanted to capture the soul, the real soul of like how a lot of people live and grow up. And so it wasn't a lot of the over the top gunfights and drug deals and nothing like that. I just wrote about everyday people and
nice.
the different things that they deal with every day on a deeper level. Like they all wrestling with something. It's not easy to exist the way they exist. So that's what I wanted to do because I get it. There's a market for the over the top superhero drug dealer story, but I just think it's been
Right.
done a lot.
Yeah.
And the only problem I have with some of it is I think it does a disservice to the lives of the people that it depicts,
Hmm.
because it's deeper than that. People don't just wake up and behave the way they behave. I'm not telling you not to tell a story,
Right.
but what I always tell authors is if you're going to tell the story right,
Right.
right? Don't just give us the peripheral things on the outside that, you know, somebody from you observe from a distance. I want to know why. That's one of the most, I think every author needs to ask himself that on every page. Why? Like, you see what you said? You're that kid that want to know why.
Yeah. Why?
That's how your stories have to be. People can't just do things that don't make sense for
Right.
no reason, just
And
because.
please say that again. Say that
Right.
again.
Just
I
because.
always have to, I used to, somebody say, hey, I want to write a book, here it is. And I would just take it and attempt to edit it. Let's just say I've had to go through and proofread before I can even edit and let
Right.
people know, you got stuff going on in here that don't make sense.
Right.
It's transitions going on. You know, and because I have a soft heart, so I'm a soft-hearted person. I don't want to tell people your book don't suck, but it needs some work. And so, you know, you have all these transitions going on. Why did your mother leave the home? Why did your dad leave the home? What were you doing that day? You know, what was the thought process behind it? Why did he shoot him or her? What, you know, you just got events going on with no understanding, and you have to give people understanding. In a book is like watching a movie. You don't watch a movie without the scene somewhat going up and down, up and then down. There's transitions. It's the whole thing can't be on a high. It's got to come down sometimes. And so I think sometimes we just need that class. Like I'm stuck on publishing classes, but I may need to scale it back to just writing.
Right.
Just let's
Yeah, it's,
write
you can't,
first.
they don't, okay, what I, when people ask me, like, how do I write? Over the years, like, my methodology has evolved and changed until I have kind of like a system that really, really works really well for me. But the easiest way for me was to always visualize my books like a movie, but
Right.
not just like any movie, right? I try to visualize my books like the good movies, because there are reasons why certain books are classics. There's
Mm-hmm.
a reason why you can pick up a Zora Neale Hurston today and it still resonate and speak to you. There's a reason why someone can pick up a Ralph Ellison in Russian and feel it. It's because good storytelling and good stories have certain elements, and it doesn't matter the genre. I keep telling authors, don't get hung up on a genre. You could be writing science fiction, right? And your character's off world on another planet. All the laser beams and the ships and the aliens and all of that action is just the dressing. In order for
Right.
that book to become a classic, you have to put universal things that people can relate to that makes sense to them. Harry
That is correct.
Potter, J.K. Rowling is a billionaire, not because she wrote about a bunch of little kids as wizards. It's because she dealt with them growing up. If you start with the first book to the last book, she not only, for one, the audience that picked it up, they grew up with those characters. So the
Yes.
same things that she was writing about in book 4, they were at an age where they either just went through that, were going through it, or about to enter into that,
I didn't
all the
know
way up
that.
until adulthood, right?
Nice. That was smart. That
Right.
hands down.
And even for the adults that read it, because aside from all the spells and the magic, just below the surface of all of that is a human story. Stories fall into a few categories, right? It's a coming of age story. It doesn't matter where you're from. You've been through these things. It don't matter what language you speak, what culture, you go through these things. So when you put these things into stories, it resonates and speaks to people. That's why certain books are classics. Certain books are cool, where they read like this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. But the best books are the books that people feel. You take them, like you said, there has to be, you can't just have it on 100 the whole book,
Yeah.
right? You gotta bring them down. Like you try to, you know what I mean? It has to have a rhythm.
Yeah.
It's the same way like composing music. Music has breaks. Music has where you have your hook. Music has different within the same song. You have to write your books that way.
I
So
agree. Well, guess what? That hour just
flew
flew
by. I
by.
knew it was gonna
Just
fly
woo,
by.
and here we are. But I'm not gonna let you go without us talking about the new book that's coming out. And if you're an author, aspiring author, hopefully we've given you all you literally probably could just go self-publish your own book
All the
today.
sauce. We just
Um,
gave you all the sauce and the
yeah,
seasoning.
that was it. That we gave you the nuggets, the fries, the drink,
The
all
drink,
the things that you
like
need.
a whole meal.
But tell us about your new book. The title. When is it coming out? What is it about?
Well, the title is Love, Sex, and Ink. I put it out a few weeks ago. It's on Amazon. If you can't find me, just put in Love, Sex, and Ink. It'll come up. And it's basically a story about two owners. The two lead characters are two owners of a tattoo shop. They were together. They broke up. They share a child, but they open up the shop together. But what I wanted to do with the book is I always love telling a lot of different stories within it. So you not only get their main storyline, which is them trying to keep the shop open. I give you social commentary. I don't want to give it away, but there's something that happens at the end of book one that you're going to be like, I can't believe that happened. And it's relevant to the times. And then throughout the series, I touch on all these different characters and give you their stories. So in that one story, you're probably going to end up getting 15 deep, emotional, exciting, thrilling, sexy stories that you're gonna get caught up in it. Trust me. So Love, Sex, and Ink. Go on Amazon, get that. All my information is in the back of the book.
Which I have right here. So I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
Love is what we all want, whether we are ready or willing to admit that or not. Sex is one of the purest, raw, potent, and passionate forms of expression. Ink on our skin is how we tell our stories with the images and words that hold deep meaning for us. Vita is a Vita or Vita?
Vita.
Vita and Cole are owners of the Love, Sex, and Ink tattoo parlor, but what makes their business relationship complicated is that they are also ex-lovers who share a daughter. Vita has already moved on, while Cole struggles to deal with their shared past. The backstories of the tattoo artists who work alongside Cole and Vita in the shop aren't any less complicated. This is the first book in the series that will chronicle the steamy, sexy, and sometimes dangerous soap opera that all of their lives have become in graphic, vivid, and raunchy detail. Sounds like a movie. When
Yeah.
should we expect the movie to come out?
Hopefully, you know what? Hopefully soon because I'm actually I have another book called Death in the City that I originally wrote that as a screenplay. And then I was like, well, I'm not gonna make this movie anytime soon. So I turned it into a novel. When I turned it into a novel, because I have written a screenplay so many years ago, like it's like picking up old work and then revamping it. And I
Yeah,
put so much into the new book that when I released it, it led to people begging me for another book. So that's how I had Death in the City and Love in the City. But for Death in the City, I actually turned it into a series. So
nice.
soon as all of this is over, I would really like to start filming it because I'm ready, right? I got my equipment. I just, I was starting to cast when they were like, guess what, guys? Everybody got to stay home. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
And that's
I'm
what they
like,
said. That
yeah.
still floors me. I was out, I think I was in New Orleans teaching a class. My company never calls me at work. So
Hmm.
because they know I'm working. So I see the corporate number come up on my phone and I'm like, all right,
What's going on, right?
this right. And we knew like at this particular week, we knew coronavirus had shown up and we were like in the first 2 weeks. So this is like in the first, so we were like third weekend when everything was Like California had shut down. You guys had shut down right after California. It was coming across the coast, and like the big major cities had already shut down. So I'm in New Orleans, and they're next. And so I'm like, they're calling me. I bet you we going home. And literally I say, okay, class, we're gonna take a break real quick. My company's calling me. I got a feeling they're sending us home. Call them
Right.
back. They said, we got a plane ticket for you. Wrap up your class and y'all get out of there. And I
Yeah.
was like, until when? Like, they're like,
Crazy.
check your email. It'll have all the answers in it. And basically, they was like, go home until we call you, until America opens back up. Man, this is the craziest, and we'll end on pandemic life. This is probably
Yeah.
the craziest that I've ever seen our
I've never
world.
seen anything like this.
How old are you?
44.
40. So 40 and 40, not too far behind. And so in our 44 and 40 years, never seen anything like it. But we had
Now,
to figure out how to shift, how to pivot, how to embrace the change. So in our closing, encourage, inspire, which you've already encouraged and inspired. But if there is an aspiring author on here, somebody who hasn't written their book, they got their pen in their hand, they got their computer, and they're like, I just need one more thing. Like, where should I start? You know, what would you tell a new author getting started?
I would tell them, write. It's gonna sound cliche. Write every day. Stop sitting around waiting for inspiration. Right?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I get inspired where I'm like, wow, I have to write this, but I still write every day. Right? Because your creativity is like a muscle. The more you use it, is the stronger it gets. Once you commit to sitting down at your desk and typing, however you do it with your pen and paper on your keyboard, the inspiration will find you. You just have to
Mhm.
commit to it. The second bit of advice, because this is what I do to avoid writer's block, because I know that's a big issue for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, I've been trying to write this and I got stuck. You don't have to write your book in a linear fashion. You don't have to write beginning, middle, end. You don't have to write that way. So if you fell in love with this story idea and the ending of the book is vivid in your mind, if you write it, just pen and paper is easy. Write the ending, and then you work your way to that. Right? If you're typing, listen, create a file. Whatever the title of your book is, the end. And so if you do that, I find that when I don't try to write beginning, middle, end, I don't get stuck, because sometimes you do hit a scene and you're like, man, I don't even know what to do next. But I know that this other scene is in my head. I just write it down. So write every day. You have to. If you wait for inspiration, or if you wait till you feel like it, a
Right.
book that you could have written in 6 months will take you 6 years for no reason. You know what I mean?
I
If you want
second
to,
all of that he said. Absolutely. Stop putting your pen down. Write every day, even if it's just a little bit.
I
Stay
mean, it's a little
committed to
bit,
yourself.
right? A paragraph. Look, I told another author when she told me, you know, she was stuck. I said, look, if you write a page a day, right? A page a day, at the end of the year, you have 300 plus pages. Half a page. Some days you'll write 10 pages. Some days you might change a sentence, but do something so that it
Absolutely.
becomes habit.
Well, I guess we'll have to do a part two to this interview, because we're going
Yes,
to be
yes,
rolling right
yes.
on into the hour and a half in a minute.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you so
My pleasure.
much for
Thank you
being
for
my
having
guest
me.
today. Absolutely. How can everyone keep in contact with you? I know we can get the new book on Amazon, but how can they keep in contact with you via
Uh,
social media?
yeah, social media, Keith Kareem Williams on Facebook. My Instagram and my Twitter is the same. At Reem After Dark, REEM After Dark, all one word. So you can find me there. Send me messages. I answer all my messages. You know what I mean? I usually don't let it go to the next day without answering everybody. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll also drop any information below this video. It'll be broadcast in several different places, but if you're catching this via Facebook, you can inbox him directly from this video. It'll be on Facebook first, and then it'll go to YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. Do you have any last and final words? Anything that you want to say to our viewing audience today?
Um, if for the readers out there, when you read a book and you love it, talk about it, please. Your favorite authors, don't keep us to yourself. The best way for authors to get their name out there is still word of mouth. Because I know a lot of times readers they kind of fall in love with your work and they
Right,
kind of keep it like it's like when you listen to an album, right? When an album just dropped and you have the tracks that everybody's playing on the radio. But you might listen to track 25 or track 13 and you fall in love with that song and it feels like yours, right? And when you start hearing it on the radio, it's like, you don't like it as much because not everybody likes it, right?
right.
Don't do that to us, readers,
Yes,
right? For authors, look, man, be yourself. You can have your favorite author who you admire or your favorites, but you have to be yourself because nobody else can be you but you. So make sure that
absolutely.
you write and you speak in your own voice.
Amen. Oh, yeah, this is author church, is what I tell people. I might throw an amen if it's real good. If it get
Amen.
good to me, I'm gonna
Right.
say amen.
Amen.
But again, I am author slash publisher Brandy Hunt. I am publisher of On the Right Track, WRITE. I get you on the right track so you can stay on the right track. If you're interested in publishing, consulting, any service that we provide, you just want to talk to me about an idea, I provide free consultations. Did you hear me? You have no excuse not to have a conversation that's free. Do
Right.
you have right? Ain't that right, Keith? Kareem?
Absolutely.
You have
Free.
no
We should jump
excuse.
on it. Free. No excuses.
No excuse. It's free. If you're an author and you say, "Oh, I want to have a conversation with Brandy," and I want Kareem in the conversation, I'll hit him up and be like, "Hey, they want you too." But I'll send you a link. We can do a interview. It's free, so you have no excuse not to at least take me up on my free offers. The workshop I was telling you about, when this actually airs, it will be October-ish. The workshop starts on October 5th. So if you're watching this after October 5th, you can get the replay. So just directly message me and say, hey, I still want the workshop information. I'm literally giving away all the self-publishing tips that me and Kareem just talked about. I'm giving out the secrets for the end of the year. So you don't have to go into 2021 still talking about, I want to write a book and I don't know what to do next, because I'm going to give you all the next steps that you need. Guys, thank you for watching. Hang on the line for me because I want to talk to you for a few more seconds. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time.